Srivasa Adigaura Bhaktarunda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhavata sevayam bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtike. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, welcome everyone to today's Bhagavatam reading. We are in the Canto 2nd, the Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 5th, the Cause of All Causes. And we are on the verse 10. Nanratam tvacha tavacha api yatha mam prabhavishi bho avignaya param matta etva tvam yato hime. Translation: whatever you have spoken to me is not false, because unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate truth beyond me, one is sure to be illusioned by observing my powerful activities. The frog in the well, purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The frog in the well logic illustrates that a frog residing in the atmosphere and the boundary of the well cannot imagine the length and breadth of the gigantic ocean. Such a frog, when informed of the gigantic length and breadth of the ocean, first of all does not believe that there is such an ocean. And if someone assures him that factually there is such a thing, the frog then begins to measure it by imagination, by means of pumping its belly as far as possible, with the result that the tiny abdomen of the frog bursts and the poor frog dies without any experience of the actual ocean. Similarly, the material scientists also want to challenge the inconceivable potency of the Lord by measuring him with their frog-like brains and their scientific achievements, but at the end, they simply die unsuccessfully like the frog. Sometimes a materially powerful man is accepted as God or incarnation of God without any knowledge of the factual God. Such a material assessment may be gradually extended, and the attempt may reach to the highest limit of Brahmaji, who is the topmost living being within the universe and has a duration of life unimaginable to the material scientist, as we get the information from the most authentic book of knowledge, Bhagavad-Gita 8.17. Brahmaji's 1 day and night is calculated to be some hundreds of thousands of years on our planet. This long duration of life may not be believed by the frog in the well, but persons who have a realization of the truth mentioned in the Bhagavad-Gita accept the existence of great personality who create the variegatedness of the complete universe. It is understood from the revealed scriptures that Brahmaji of the universe is younger than all other Brahmas in charge of the many universes beyond this. But none of them can be equal to the personality of Godhead. Narada ji is one of the liberated souls, and after his liberation, he was known as Narada. Otherwise, before his liberation, he was simply a son of maidservant. The questions may be asked why Narada ji was not aware of Supreme Lord and why he misconceived Brahmaji to be the Supreme Lord. Although Factually, he was not. A liberated soul is never bewildered by such mistaken idea. So why did Narada ji ask all those questions just like an ordinary man with a poor fund of knowledge? There was such bewilderment in Arjuna also, although he is eternally the associate of the Lord. Such bewilderment in Arjuna or in Narada takes place by the will of the Lord, so that other non-liberated persons may realize the real truth and knowledge of the Lord. The doubt arising in the mind of Narada about Brahmaji becoming all-powerful is a lesson for the frogs in the well, that they may not be bewildered in misconceiving the identity of the personality of Godhead, even by comparison to personality like Brahma. So, what to speak of ordinary man who falsely pose themselves as God or incarnation of God? The Supreme Lord is always supreme. And as we have tried to establish many times in these purports, no living being, even up to the standard of Brahma, can claim to be one with the Lord. One should not be misled by the people when people worship great men as God after his death as a matter of hero worship. There were many kings like Lord Ramachandra, the king of Ayodhya, but none of them are mentioned as God in the revealed scripture. To be a good king is not necessarily the qualification for being Lord Rama, but to be a great personality like Krishna is the qualification for being the personality of Godhead. If we scrutinize the characters who took part in the battle of Kurukshetra, we may find that Maharaja Yudhishthira was no less a pious king than Lord Ramachandra, and by character study, Maharaja Yudhishthira was better moralist than Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna asked Maharaja Yudhishthira to lie, but Maharaja Yudhishthira protested. But that does not mean Maharaja Yudhishthira could be equal to Lord Ramachandra or Lord Krishna. The great authorities have estimated Maharaja Yudhishthira to be a pious man, but they have accepted Lord Rama or Lord Krishna as the personality of Godhead. The Lord is therefore different identity in all circumstances, and no idea of anthropomorphism can be applied to him. The Lord is always the Lord, and a common living being can never be equal to him. Mukam karoti vachalam pangom langaite girim yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Guru Dhinatarinam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of the fallen souls. His mercy turns the dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. I seek forgiveness for transgressions. I may commit while speaking. And thank you for joining the call once again on a wonderful Sunday with a lot of sunshine and warm weather. We are actually in the middle of the chapter where a deep conversation is happening between Lord Brahma and his son Narada Muni. What has happened is Narada Muni has been asking questions, and he's not just asking questions in an arrogant way, but in a very submissive way, so that he can understand. The questions that he is asking is Yad Rupam, characteristics of the universe. Yad Adhishtanam, what is its shelter? Yata Shastram, how is it created? The process of creation. Yat Samastam, how is it conserved? Yat Param, what it depends on. Yeah, Yat Cha, what is it composed of? What are the ingredients? So this is the conversation that is happening between Narada ji and Brahma. And Brahma, he understood the mood in which Narada is asking. And so actually in the previous verse, which Sabyasachi Prabhu yesterday so nicely explained, Brahma actually says in the verse, my dear boy Narada, so Brahmaji is not at all offended. In fact, he's very pleased that Narada is asking these questions in a very submissive way and to understand what is going on. And so, what do we see? Actually, when you look at the final lines of the purport, actually the final lines of the word, the Lord is therefore a different identity in all circumstances, and no idea of anthropomorphism can be applied to him. The Lord is always the Lord, and a common living being can never be equal to him. Ever since I read these last lines of the purport, I've been mesmerized and captivated. The truth is presented to us in these two lines in such a simplistic way. Then I started wondering what the word anthropomorphism, it's almost like a tongue twister, caught my mind. The dictionary meaning of this word is that the attribution of human characteristics or behavior to a god, animal, or an object. The word actually connects us back to the very first para of this purport, which is an analogy of the frog in the well. The frog is trying to measure the ocean by the size of its belly. In other words, it's trying to apply its own characteristic to the ocean, and it ends up in a disaster. So the other example for anthropomorphism is Duryodhana and Shakuni. They also believe that Lord Krishna is a magician of the first order, and hence he's performing miracles. Otherwise, he's no different from them. It's just that Krishna is that little bit better than them, so Krishna is beating them in everything. Duryodhana Duryodhana further believes, that Shakuni has all these occult powers that he has gathered over a period of time, with a lot of sadhana. He has accumulated it, and he thinks Shakuni somehow or the other can beat this Mayavi Krishna, and victory will be theirs very shortly. Another example like for this is the foolish Pundarka, king of Krusha. He is so much illusioned in his arrogance. He looks like the Lord. He's gifted with a body that looks like the Lord. So he sends an arrogant message through an envoy to Lord Krishna, and the messenger reads out the message. I am Lord Vasudeva. To bestow my grace on the people, I have incarnated on this earth. You have falsely named yourself as Vasudeva and bore my insignia. Take refuge or face battle. So this is the extent to which illusion and pride can lead one to. Even though they literally have nothing, they think they can take over the Lord. So what happens? Krishna says, okay, I'll meet you in the battle. And this foolish king, marches into the battlefield with 2 Akshohinis of his army. And, the king of Kashi thinks, with the might of army, like Duryodhana and Shakuni were thinking they can beat Krishna with magic. Whereas here, the king of Krusha, Pundraka, and the king of Kashi are thinking, they can beat Krishna with the might of their armies. So they have 2 plus 3, 5 Akshohinis of army, and they think they can defeat Krishna with it. And they all march into the battlefield. And how is Pundraka dressed? He has put up 2 false arms, and now he's carrying in his 4 arms the conch, the wheel, the mace, the lotus, and then he decorates himself with swastika and a false kaustuba, and all these things are false. He himself knows that, but he's so much deep in his illusion, his own illusion. And the people around him, including his own army, are laughing at him. He looks like a clown, but Krishna comes in and it takes no time to finish him off. So you can see attributing material qualities to the Lord, or imitating the Lord or impersonating the Lord, doesn't change the identity of the Lord in all circumstances. The scientists were strongly believing in, or they still believe in the Big Bang theory. Yet they struggle to explain the essential facets of the universe. The initial period of the Big Bang, it violates the first law of thermodynamics. And it also violates the law of entropy. In the early inflationary period of this Big Bang, it also violates the speed of light. And there are so many more inconsistencies with the theory of Big Bang. However, like Pondorika or the frog or whatever, to explain these particular shortfalls, what do the scientists do? They come up with concepts like dark matter, dark energy, and what happens is it doesn't explain everything. So now they shift the burden of these logic into what is called as space. And now what happens? It further complicates the issues, and it needs more logic and more jugglery, and still no solution. In fact, they're thinking the universe is larger and it is older than the Big Bang itself. So how can it happen? How can the Big Bang, if Big Bang is the source of the universe, how can the universe be older than the Big Bang? All said and done, these scientists have not been able to do one simple thing, that is measure the size of the universe. It is just like the frog in the well, the analogy that Prabhupada gave. Prabhupada is a master of analogies. So, they have not been able to measure, just like the frog. Another example, it was only in the 1905 that Einstein proposed the special theory of relativity, and with it came the concepts of time travel and time dilation. Now let's look at Bhagavad-Gita 8.17. What does Krishna says? Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyad brahmo viduhu ratim yuga shastranam te aho ratra vidhi janaha. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of the night. Here we can see, the durations of the Brahmaloka are so huge when relatively compared to the earth. So Brahma lives on the highest planet called Satyaloka. The duration of Brahma's life is 100 Satyaloka years, which translates roughly into 311 trillion and 40 billion years. This was told by Krishna during the Mahabharata war, long before Einstein actually proposed his theory of relativity or special theory of relativity. Then, if you look at our Srimad Bhagavatam or even other Vedic literature, there are these various stories about time travel and dilation, and how when somebody visits Indraloka and comes back to earth, so many thousands of years have passed already on the earth. Yet the modern educated persons don't want to accept these facts, and they're all just like the frogs in the well. Now let us look at Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, verse 25, chapter 2, verse 25. This is actually, in this particular chapter, we are talking about Ashtanga Yoga, and how in Ashtanga Yoga, the yogi has to elevate the soul through the various chakras, and then, he can come out of his scalp and then travel through the different various planetary systems. The Sishumara is the pivot for the turning of the complete universe, and it is called the navel of Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu. The yogi alone goes beyond this circle, Sishumara, and attains the planet Maharloka. where purified saints like Bhrigu enjoy life durations of 4,300,000,000 solar years. The planet is worshipable even for saints who are transcendentally situated. We can see again here, relative time, how a single, a lifetime on this planet, is equal to so many billion years on the earth. Now let us also look at 2.26, where again, at this time of final devastation of the complete universe, the end of the duration of Brahma's life, a flame of fire emanates from the mouth of Ananta, from the bottom of the universe. The yogi sees all the planets of the universe burning to ashes and thus leaves Satyaloka by aeroplanes used by the great purified souls. The duration of the life in Satyaloka is calculated to be 15,480,000,000,000 years. So I think at this point of time, we should really take a look at the chart, the spiritual sky, so that we can understand what we are talking about. We all understand this is the spiritual sky. This portion of this chart is the spiritual sky. In the middle is Brahma Jyoti, and then the bottom 1/3 of this chart is actually the material world. You can see how the material world is, resting on the hoods of Sheshanag, and from Kranodakashayi Vishnu's, body, we can see all these Hiranyagarbhas emerging, and there are different Hiranyagarbhas of different sizes. And we also read that our Brahma is the youngest of all the universes, which means, ours is not only one of the smaller universes, but it's also very young. If we actually look at our universe, what is happening here? Again, there is Mahavishnu here in Garbhodaka ocean, and then we have all the planetary systems here. This is the Bhurloka, or the Earth planet, where we are all there. Above us is Bhuvarloka, Swargaloka, or this is Indraloka, Maharloka. That's the one that we just read. The sages and others who go to Maharloka have 4 billion, years of life when compared to the earth. And then there is Janaloka, then there's Tapaloka, and then there is Satyaloka. Satyaloka is the abode of Brahma. And when the living entity reaches Satyaloka, the living entity's body is almost completely subtle with no gross elements, and it's becoming more and more spiritual. Actually, when one is there in Satyaloka, it's very near to Brahma Jyoti, and the soul, it's very clear, we also read about it. The soul has to pierce through these various layers: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, and then has to pierce through this Brahma Jyoti to reach the spiritual world. However, it depends. If the living entity wanted to merge into Brahma Jyoti, it will stop here. It will not be able to go beyond it. But if the living entity was a devotee of the Lord, then it can easily pierce through the Brahma Jyoti and reach the spiritual world. So here we can see, the scientists are basically behaving like a frog in the well. They are refusing to see beyond, what is the material world. They are not even, they're refusing so much that they're not even seeing that there are other planetary systems. It's only in the past decade that they started acknowledging there may be other universes. It's only in the last few decades. So if we look at it, Prabhupada is very right when he uses the word, frog in the well. He's not being uncharitable at all. Now let's switch the topics, and we'll see why is Narada Muni asking all these questions. Is he not knowledgeable? We all know that he's very, very knowledgeable, and he is also self-realized soul. Then why is he bewildered? Well, we have seen this pattern with other devotees also. For example, Arjuna We all know Arjuna was very well educated and he was very knowledgeable. More than anything else, he was a constant companion of Lord Krishna. Even then, what happened? He was bewildered right in the middle of the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And then Krishna had to reveal to him the knowledge of Bhagavad-Gita. There is another example. This example is of King Parikshit. He was also a very self-realized soul. He dealt with everyone in a very empathetic and a very compassionate way, never arrogant. He knew the right things to do. And when you look at it, even when Kali Purusha came, he was ready to kill him. But then, because Kali took shelter of his lotus feet, what did he do? He forgave Kali Purusha. That sort of a king, he gets a little thirsty and then he gets bewildered and he gets into a rage of anger. Then what he does, he garlands Shemika Rishi with a dead snake. And as Providence may have it, the Rishi's young son curses Maharaja Parikshit. And Maharaja Parikshit, when he hears it that he has only 7 days to die, at this point of time, he's no longer bewildered. He understands that all of this is the mercy of the Lord. And so he heads to, the banks of Ganges and he sits down, and Sukadeva Goswami comes over there, and then Parikshit Maharaj starts asking the same type of questions. Actually, we are hearing to these questions because he asked those questions. So the pattern is, whenever you see this pattern, be assured it is the mercy of the Lord. Something of great value is going to be revealed for the benefit of the devotees and the world at large. So what can be of great value for devotees and the world at large? Let's take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, verse 2, chapter 2, verse 6. Savai pumso paro dharma yatho bhaktir adokshaja aitukiya aprahit. I don't know why I'm not able to pronounce today. Apratihataha yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation or dharma of all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted, completely satisfy the self. Then Lord Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita 10.9, one second, let me bring it up. 10.9. Yeah. What does Krishna say? Matchitta matgata prana bodhayanta paraspara katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotee dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So earlier, in Srimad Bhagavatam, we found out what is the purpose of, or what is the purpose of life, and that is what is very important or is of such value or such great value to the devotees. And now Krishna is also saying, that when the devotees are together, they are going to be, talking to each other and trying to, satisfy themselves. And what are they talking about? They're talking about me. So here also you can see in all the 3 instances that we are seeing, be it Brahma and Narada, or be it Arjuna and Krishna himself, or be it Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami and the various other, Sutta Goswami and Naimisharanya, sages All of them, what are they doing? They are talking about these topics. So what should these topics be? What should be chanted, what should be heard, and what should be remembered? Are there any instructions to us, or are there any injunctions or directions to us? To this, Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.5. So Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.5. That's my reference. I'm sorry, I'm switching too many screens. What is being said here is 2.1.5. Oh, I'm in the wrong canto. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatam Bhagavan Ishwaro Hari Sarvat Shrotavya Kirtavyascha Smratavyascha Ichchata Abhayam. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear and glorify. Hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul and controller and savior from all miseries. So, we can very, very clearly see what is being said here. We should be thinking about the Lord, we should be chanting about the Lord, and we should be glorifying the Lord. So, in verse 2. In the verse, Srimad Bhagavatam verse 2.1.10, it says, if one faithfully hears Srimad Bhagavatam, which I am presenting to you, one develops unflinching faith towards the Supreme Lord. And then in the very next verse, again, Sukadeva Goswami says, constant chanting of the Lord's holy name, following the great authorities, is doubtlessly and fearlessly the way for success for all. Now reverting back to the purport, Prabhupada, finally takes up the example of many great pious kings, who, like Ramachandra, ruled their kingdoms in a very pious way and in a very great way. But they are not mentioned as God anywhere in our scriptures, and people do not remember them as gods. Finally, if you go back to these verses, these lines, the Lord, no, not that one. Once again. Yeah, if we scrutinize the characters who took part in the battle of Kurukshetra, we may find that Maharaja Yudhishthira was no less pious king than the Lord Ramachandra, and by character study, Maharaja Yudhishthira was a better moralist than Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna asked Maharaja Yudhishthira to lie, but Maharaja Yudhishthira protested. But that does not mean Maharaja Yudhishthira could be equal to Lord Rama or Krishna. The great authorities estimated Maharaja Yudhishthira to be a pious man, but they have accepted Lord Rama or Krishna as the personality of Godhead. So what is Prabhupada saying here? And in fact, he's repeating what Brahmaji is saying. He's saying no matter who you are, however great you are, even up to the level of Brahma himself, you cannot be equal to the Lord, and you will never be equal to the Lord. In fact, that's also one of the things that Prabhupada says earlier in the purport, that the Brahma, however powerful the Brahma, there are so many Brahmas, however powerful Brahma can be, he is not even a minuscule part of what the Supreme Lord is. So the Lord, therefore, is a different identity in all circumstances. Nobody can get the identity of the Lord other than the Lord himself. So the Lord is always the Lord, and a common living being can never be equal to him. I will stop here. If there are any discussions or any questions, please bring them up, and I'll try to, I'll do my best to answer them.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nice. I think, yeah, I mean, in the beginning, you were saying that you didn't prepare well or not able to put together, but you did, I mean, excellent presentation, Prabhu. I mean, you expanded each of the sections of the purport, right? The way the Prabhupada explained. So, very nicely explained or discussed. So, thank you, Prabhu. It was like, especially in the beginning section and at the end also, I mean, right? So, beginning section, Prabhupada was comparing, I mean, the frog in the well. So, I mean, you put it very nicely. So it measures, I mean, by its body. I mean, if they don't, first of all, if they agree, they will say, okay, if they agree there is a God, okay, how can the God be great? Okay, can he be great this much? Can he be? I mean, we'll try to measure with our own
Correct.
limitations. So we don't understand that we are limited. So
Thank you.
I always, I mean, I was laughing at the way explaining. Thank you, Prabhu. It was very nice presentation. You quoted, yeah, very nice verses also.
Prabhuji. Thank you. It's all Guru's and Krishna's mercy. Thank you.
Yeah, and the Lord is always the Lord, no matter what.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, Yudhishthira Maharaj, so he was such a, I mean, compared to, I mean, Lord Krishna, he was more moralist, right? I mean, moral values perspective, if somebody sees, they find faults with Krishna, but they won't find faults with Yudhishthira Maharaj. But then it doesn't make Yudhishthira Maharaj greater than Krishna. So,
No way. And in fact, that's also we can look at the Hiranyakashipus, the Ravanas, then we also have Kartyaveer Arjuna, and there's so many other demonic, characters who had long lifetimes and so much power in them, but they could not do, they were nowhere compared to the Lord. The moment the Lord appeared, for example, Hiranyakashipu, when we look at the picture of, it's there in the temple, where Lord Narasimha is actually fighting Hiranyakashipu, and Hiranyakashipu looks like a small bee in front of the Lord. So actually it also comes in our Narsingarthi also it comes. He's so small, but Hiranyakashipu was not really small. When somebody like you or me stood in front of Hiranyakashipu, we would be like a bee. That is the size of Hiranyakashipu. But then before the Lord, everyone is so minuscule. Sometimes the Lord has to come down to our level, even Hiranyakashipu's level, so that Hiranyakashipu can see and understand, and then he finishes. So, there are so many like that sort of, like even when you look at Ravana, he had such a long life and he had all that he wanted to enjoy, but even then he wanted to transgress multiple times, not just once. And so the Lord had to come and the Lord had to show him his place. Nobody can become the Lord himself. So that is the lesson. So
yeah, thank you, Prabhu. And also the other point in the beginning, I think yesterday when we were discussing about Duryodhana was thinking when he saw whatever Krishna showed in that assembly, right? He was thinking, yeah, he's a magician, right? So I mean, of course, every one of them were magicians in that time, right? I mean, they were able to find 1,000 people at a time. I mean, it's not a normal thing, right? They have big powers. So they were thinking, yeah, Krishna is showing some magic. I'm a magician. Krishna is a bigger magician. So let me do what he can. But I have, hundreds and thousands of people on my side, so I can beat him, beat the army. So he was thinking.
and like Poundrika, there was also
Yeah,
this.
that's,
That is a funny episode actually. How much more, like Krishna didn't even fight that battle. He went there, he used his Sudarshan Chakra, chopped off his false, hands, everything fell down, and then he chopped off his head. He still gives him a chance to, fall at his feet and beg forgiveness. He doesn't. So what happens? He chops his head off and finish. There is no fight. All the soldiers are saved. They go back to their places. Whereas Jarasandhara and I forget who's the other one. They refused. In spite of being defeated more than 13 times, each time I think Jarasandhara brings like 8 Akshohini, 13 Akshohini of armies, and each time he's defeated, and Krishna doesn't kill him. He's merciful. He doesn't kill him. He sends him back. In spite of that, his, what do you say, pride is not satiated. It doesn't get defeated. He still continues to think that he can defeat Krishna. And
Krishna is collecting all the bad soul, I mean, bad people. I mean, he doesn't need to go and find them. Jarasandha is getting there in front of Krishna.
yes, exactly. So
Yeah, nice, Prabhu. Thank you.
they're all wonderful pastimes of the Lord.
Yeah, people know it. I mean, when you are explaining that, I was relating in the
Yeah.
current days, a lot of people say they are God, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
they know that they are not. I think that's how you mentioned it as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Pandrika knows that he's not Lord, but he
Yeah.
was acting in person. So, I mean, people know it, but then still they do it. I mean, yeah, it's a
I didn't want to take specific names, but we all know, like there are so many such, Babas or whatever else, who claim to be the Lord, and then, they also conduct themselves, they conduct this Rasa Leela, they conduct this Krishna something, they dress up like Krishna and Radha and all those things. And, if you're Krishna and you're Radha, you don't have to dress up. You are Krishna and Radha. So it's as simple as that. Otherwise, you're like Paundraka. You have to dress up, you have to show something, and then even then, it's really, it's really funny that they do it. I actually remember a movie as a young kid. I had watched this, and the school kids are now performing a section of Ramayana as a school drama. And what happens is Ravana has to lift that, Kailash Parvat, but somebody from his opposition, camp, whoever is opposed to that Ravana, he has placed the heavy weight in the particular Kailash, the prop that looked like Kailash Parvat. And he comes on the stage and he's singing this song and other things, and he tries to lift Kailash Parvat. It doesn't lift at all because it's so heavy, So, you can't even impersonate somebody like Ravana. Where can you impersonate somebody like Krishna, or Rama? That's so wonderful, actually. So thank you, Prabhuji, for that exchange. I'll be, any other discussions or questions?
Hare Krishna, Radha Kunjabihari Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Prabhu, such a wonderful class. I was a little bit multitasking because I was in the temple, but you so wonderfully explained everything. I mean, especially made the point about the fact that the frog, and and I think in to some extent we all are in that frog mentality, which is what I for sure need to come out of. You explained that so nicely, made that point about the timelines in the different planets, planetary systems, and the Brahmas. And thank you so much for a wonderful Sunday morning.
Thank you, Mataji. Actually, if you look at it, we are all products of the education system that we are all going through. So for a very long time in my life, I used to be on the side of the scientist or frog brain, and it started changing only after I got into ISKCON, Mercy of Prabhupada, and devotees and Krishna, So slowly and steadily, as I started reading Prabhupada's purports, over a period of time, even I started transforming and started seeing that, oh, there are all these gaps, and we don't want to accept those gaps. So you're right, Mataji. It takes time for us to transform, but that's the beauty of Prabhupada's mercy.
Yes, Prabhu, absolutely. I mean, it's so clear that all the things that the scientists say, I mean, there are so many, like you said, gaps. I mean, how do you think this would have happened? Whereas the explanation is so nicely given in the Shastras.
Yeah.
So it makes complete sense. Yeah. Whereas, so many holes in whatever the scientists have to say.
Yeah, actually, there were two books that, even in my journey in ISKCON, there were two books that actually changed or started changing my what I used to call as rational thinking. The first one was the Science of Self-Realization book. Then the second one was a much smaller book, but had a much more profound impact on me. That one is the book called Life Comes from Life. It's such a, it's so simple, just like how Prabhupada is saying here in the last two lines, it's such a simple book, particularly Life Comes from Life, and so convincing. After reading those two, my faith and this thing, I think that would be the transformational point for me, Mataji. I would recommend everyone to go through those books at least once, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
For kids and
yeah, particularly, Life Comes from Life. That's something that every kid, we should make them read at least once. So, every children.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else wants to bring up any points or discussions? I'll give another 30 seconds. Okay, Lakshmikanta Prabhuji, I think we can end the class. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo evacha patita nam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo ananta koti vaishnavi ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you.